Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cigar Store Idiots. I'm Rob.
I'm Tyler. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing tonight?
Can't complain.
And Andrew is on some beach somewhere. It's probably 5 o'clock.
Toes in the water.
His ass is in the sand.
Not a worry in the world.
With a cold beer in his hand. So, Andrew, have a good time on your beach trip, man. We'll see you when you get back. Real quick, I just want to go ahead and to recognize our folks listening to us in other countries. I think it's really cool. I look at this thing and it just kind of blows my mind. So thank you for listening, everybody in Ireland, Mexico, Germany, Singapore, Belgium, France, Greece, Sweden, and Brazil, and now the folks down under in Australia and the mighty UK, the United Kingdom. Thank you guys for listening to us, and I hope you enjoyed as much as we do getting to do this every week. So thank you for listening. Another thing I want to tell you guys, the website is up. The merchandise is on there. Go shop at www.cigarstoreidiot.com. We've got our t-shirts in, our baseball tees, our hoodies are in. Got a couple of different styles of hoodies, camo, green, and gray. Also get you a decal, stick it somewhere, represent, be a part of the cult. We'd love to see some of you guys leaving some pictures on our social media wearing our gear. It's pretty awesome.
Pick up some baseball tees as well.
Yeah, the baseball tees are pretty nice.
We just got some black and red ones in.
Yeah, black. Yeah, but black. I have on Porky Pig. Red sleeves with a black body.
Yeah.
And then, just go, again, www.cigarstoreidiot.com and take a look at our merchandise. So we appreciate it. Tyler, the Braves are 2-0 against the mighty Dodgers.
They are.
And I couldn't be happier about it. They're keeping me awake at night, giving me a little anxiety. Last night I thought they were going to blow the lead, but they pulled it off. 2 more wins before we send those guys packing, and we head to the World Series, and I feel good about it.
Really? Well, I know you're excited about it. Maybe one day I'll get to see the Braves win it all in my lifetime.
Yeah, you may get one shot at getting to see it once in your lifetime, so enjoy the ride while it's going down.
Will do.
Okay, so we did the 27 Club a couple of episodes ago, and I got off on a tangent about Johnny Cash because everybody knows I love Johnny Cash. Tyler's a big Johnny Cash fan, and we had a couple of people saying, "Man, you guys just need to do an episode on Johnny Cash." So tonight, that's what we're doing. We hope we do it justice. We're talking about the Man in Black. We're talking about Johnny Cash, and Johnny Cash was a great singer, songwriter, guitarist, and his music pretty much innovated. It was an innovative style of music. It mixed country, rock, blues, and gospel all together. And he was so damn good at it that he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. So
got knocked out 3 of them.
Yeah, 3 of the majors. So again, he's just an incredible performer, incredible human being, a patriot. Movie star, a guy wrote books. He wrote best-selling books.
Veteran.
Well, he wasn't. He won a Nobel Peace Prize. And he was a big advocate for the Vietnam War. He talked a big advocate for Native Americans' rights, and of course he's a very spiritual man. But he had there's a lot of darkness in him.
Had a lot to say about that ragged old flag.
Yeah, he did. That's one of my favorites. So, but Johnny. Also, everybody knew him as Johnny Cash, but he had a dark side, and that was Cash, and he battled a lot of demons, and then he overcame them and got his life on track, and just a pretty great story. And we're gonna start off where, Johnny had grew up poor farming community. His family, he was the son of poor Southern Baptist sharecroppers. He was born in 1932 in Kingsland, Arkansas. He had a pretty big family. They lived in a 5-room house and farmed every day, day in, day out, on about a 20-acre cotton farm. And when cotton wasn't growing, whatever seasonal crop was growing, that's what they were doing. So they were growing cotton and whatever else would grow year round just to make ends meet.
Cash crops.
Cash crops.
Whatever was selling.
Exactly. So, he spent most of his first 15 years were spent in the field breaking his back beside his parents and his other siblings. farming. So that was what they did day in and day out. And life was hard. And then they used music as ways and means to escape some of the hardships. And he was kind of surrounded by his mother. She was always singing, the folk songs or the hymn ballads and gospel.
Just exposed to loads of music at a young age.
Yeah, and they were singing, music of the people working in the fields. And so all that kind of culminated together, and I think...
Singing the blues.
That's what he carried, and a little bit of tragedy he carried with him, and that's kind of where his whole style derives from. He began writing music at the age of 12, and his mother, she saw that he had a love for music, and they scraped together as much money as they could, and they paid for some singing lessons for him. And after about 3 lessons, his teacher, she was so taken back by his unique voice that everybody knows he has a really, unique voice. And she told him to stop taking the lessons, and that she didn't ever want him to deviate from his natural voice, because that's what drew people in when he would sing. So,
right. That baritone register that he has.
And we don't know if she just thought he was a really good singer, or she thought and didn't want to change him, or he was a really bad singer and she didn't want to take their money anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's kind of the way that played out, and religion that played a huge part and a huge role in his upbringing. His mother was a devout member of the Pentecostal church, and his older brother Jack was actually committed to joining the priesthood. And unfortunately, in 1944, Jack had died of a terrible sawmill accident, and Johnny was a small boy, and he actually witnessed that, and Jack suffered for a week. He was gashed open. He suffered in the hospital for a week,
right, until
he actually succumbed to his injuries. And he had stated that he saw angels in his room, and there was angels around him and angels in his room. So so Johnny had witnessed that at an early age.
All that had a huge impact on Johnny.
Yeah, and then even so, imagine you're watching your older sibling die, bleed to death and die and suffer for a week, and then you got to go help dig his grave.
Yeah, I know. And
so I can't even imagine how heavy that weighed on him. And I think probably you hear those things, his farming life, his religious beliefs, and the reoccurring themes in his music, along with his sadness, So
just look at the character he puts on that he portrays. He's the man in black. Yeah. He wears all black.
I'll tell you a funny story about that, and a lot of people may not know this. You know the reason why he wore all black?
He wrote a song about it. I've heard the song.
No,
is there a different reason?
There's a song about it, but the reason they wore all black is because that's the only shirt. Back then, they matched on stage, okay?
Yeah.
And that's the only color shirt that they all three had.
Oh,
so they
no
could
kidding.
Match.
Really?
So if you go back and you look, especially in the 70s, he wears a lot of white. He wears a lot of different colors. But but the man in black,
the cover, Ring of Fire, he's in a white button up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the man in black, there's not trying to take anything away from the mystique of it, but he wore black because that's the only colored shirt they had that matched, and so that's the way they did it.
You ruined it for me.
I know it's
ruined.
Sorry. So after graduation, Cash had a brief stint working in an automotive plant in Pontiac, Michigan. And it kind of makes you wonder if that's where One Piece at a Time came from, the song that he wrote, working in the plant. So he didn't work there very long. And then after that summer, he actually enlisted into the Air Force. So he's in the U.S. Air Force. And then he was sent to...
did he ever serve, though?
Yeah. He didn't. Well, yeah, he did. Okay. So in Lakeland, he got shipped.
That's why I was thinking he was a veteran.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. So, and I apologize. He actually was sent to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and that's where he met his first wife, Vivian Libertero. And so when he had met her, they had stationed him in Landsberg, Germany, West Germany, and he was a radio intercept officer. And what he did was he kind of eavesdropped on the Soviets' radio traffic. So he was always trying to pick what's going on. He's trying to eavesdrop and find secrets. And he actually was the first American to find out that Joseph Stalin had been killed, or Joseph Stalin had died. He had intercepted that message, and so it's kind of cool that he was the one that intercepted that. While in Germany, That's where he really dug in and started turning towards music, and his interest towards music got more serious. He and a couple of his Air Force buddies formed the Landsberg Barbarians, a little band, a little group they got together, and they played live shows. And he basically was teaching himself, more about songwriting and how to play the guitar and playing in front of people. And he even said that we were terrible, but when you get a couple of low-and-brow beers in you, it'll make you feel like you're great. So they'd go to these honky tonks and whip out their instruments and start playing until they got threw out or a big fist fight started.
Yeah.
So he was he was a wild man, even overseas. So when he was discharged and he came back to the States, and he settled down in Memphis with Vivian in 1954, and he actually took a job as an appliance salesman. And on the side, he pursued music. And he met up with a couple of mechanics, Marshall Grant and Luther Perkins. And these guys actually was the ones that would become the Tennessee Three. It's Johnny and these two guys. In July, summer was hot, and so was rock and roll. July 1954, Elvis had actually cut his first record at Sun Records with producer Sam Phillips in Memphis. And it just kind of knocked everybody's socks off. Elvis was a phenomenon. It was just it was a new thing happening, and we had talked about his a little dangerous out there on the stage.
He was a sex figure, man, back in the day.
Yeah, the Elvis, what is it? Elvis's pelvis.
Yeah,
the pelvis. So, but it was like a wildfire, and the music was changing, and
they were actually scared to promote Elvis at first. They aired on television telling him he couldn't move the way he does.
Yeah, they kept the cameras at his belly button up. They wouldn't go below the belt.
Can't show the pelvis.
Can't show the pelvis.
Power of the pelvis.
So, music was making that big transition to rock and roll, and Elvis was bringing it along, and you had guys, and Johnny Cash and his guys, they hounded, Sam Phillips. They wanted to get in and try to make a record, and, after being so persistent, and I guess Sam just wearing down, he let him come in, and he actually took a listen to him, and he gave him a shot, and he was real quick to tell him that he did like their sound. They were unique and had a good sound.
But you got to sharpen your craft a little bit.
Yeah, and he wasn't crazy about the gospel direction that they were going in. He wanted something original
because the gospel was everything. That's all there was up until Elvis.
You're right. That's what everything was, and so everybody. I mean, it was kind of played out.
He was trying to keep things fresh, keep things new.
Because if you wasn't doing the things where Elvis were doing, that was the direction that Sun Records was going in. So, Cash did listen, and they left, and they worked on some things, and that's when he wrote "Hey Porter." If you watch "Walk the Line," and you'll see the part where he goes in and. What is he telling him? It's the last. If you're dying dead in a ditch, and the last songs the words you want to come out of your mouth, you're going to sing it. Are you going to sing that gospel song, or are you going to sing something straight from the heart? And of course, the movie, it shows him. He starts playing Folsom Prison Blues, and it's good for Hollywood, but that's not how it went down. They actually went back with "Hey Porter," and then "Cry, Cry, Cry." And then that's when they were signed, and Sam Phillips and Sun Records branded them Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2. Hey Porter was released in 1995, and then Cry, Cry, Cry actually peaked at the charts on the Billboard at number 14. So he had several other hits in there, top 10 hits, So Doggone Lonesome, and then the once mentioned Folsom Prison Blues. The true fame arrived in 1956. And that true fame came when he released "Walk the Line." He hit number 1 on the country music charts, and it sold 2 million copies. So can you imagine selling 2 million copies of a record back in 1956?
No social media.
I mean, nobody's pushing you. You've got to go from radio station to radio station.
You can't promote yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's all self-promotion, but it's it was so
raw. It's just in its earliest days.
Yeah, it was
primitive. It's a primitive way.
It was a primitive way to get yourself out there. Yeah. So but they did it, man. They got hit number 1, and then he's got 2 million copies of that thing sold.
Part of it, Sun Records, though.
Yeah, I mean
that's such a big name back then.
Yeah,
being on the same record label as Elvis that's huge.
And with Sun Records, Sam Phillips, they caught lightning in a bottle You know, the $1 Million Quartet. I mean, think about this. He had the number one biggest names in music on his label, his label, Sun Records. You know, you got Elvis, you got Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. I mean, that is the four guys. There was nobody other than them, and they were all on that label. So it's pretty incredible. You're looking in the 1960s. Cash had relocated into California. He actually left Sun Records. Columbia was a bigger conglomerate, and they gave him a better deal and actually gave him a little bit more control of his music. And he left Sun Records. And one of the things too, he saw Elvis had left Sun Records. Okay. And then, you know, Johnny and Elvis were two totally different styles of music.
Right.
But Jerry Lee Lewis they were pushing Jerry Lee Lewis really hard. Okay. And Johnny's style is not Jerry Lee Lewis's style.
Mm-mm.
And so Johnny kind of saw that maybe as some writing on the wall that they were going to go in another direction. And, you know, Columbia came along and gave him a better opportunity, or gave him another opportunity to make more money, have more control when he left. But when he did leave, you know, they made him a rock star. I mean, a super huge musical superstar. I mean, and with that fame came 300 nights of touring, 300 nights in a year touring. It's, you know, you're on the road 300 days out of a 365-day calendar year. So you're taking things to go to sleep. You're taking things to wake you up.
Yeah.
You're drinking a lot, partying a lot. I mean, hell, if you're hanging out with Elvis, you ain't gonna party.
You don't got rest stops in Starbucks.
No, sir. Yeah. So, and these guys were actually the first to tour. They were the first ones to tour like that. So they are the true icon rock stars. You know.
Yeah.
They, you know, and I would love to be a fly on the wall on some of those trips. It would have been pretty awesome.
Yeah, I know.
So with that trip, with everything happening, that's the first time he toured with June. So when he started touring on the road like that, he was with June a good bit.
Yeah.
Of course, June was married to someone else, and he was as well. So he was still married to Vivian at the time. But with a schedule, with a schedule heavy with performances, and you know, and he had all the pressures on the road, and the drugs and alcohol started taking a toll on his family life. And unfortunately, they divorced in 1966 from Vivian. They had actually divorced. His life continued just to spiral out of control, man. He was a wild man. You know, Cash was taking over, and he was kicking ass and taking names while he was out there. You know, and at one point in Georgia, he was found by a police officer, and he pretty much was, he'd almost overdosed when the cop had found him. So, and then, you know, even years later, he would say, you know, Johnny Cash would say, I took all the drugs there are to take, and I've drank everything there is to drink, you know. So, he definitely, he has done it. He did it all. So,
yeah.
The next best thing that ever happened for him was in 1968, as he married June Carter, and June pretty much saved John from Cash. And I know it was a hard, tough battle, because we deal with people with addictions. They tend to relapse, which he did several times, and they had you know, she was somebody that he needed in his life to make him better and pull him away from the darkness, you know. And
she was his savior. Yeah,
she was totally his savior. Cool thing, they went on, and he came up with a Johnny Cash show, and that was a huge thing in the 70s. The Johnny Cash show was huge, and
TV and stuff. Is that still pretty new at this point in time?
Yeah, or? I mean, well, they started. I mean, it was color TV then.
Okay,
so,
right.
So it's just now we got this crazy music and color TV, and you know, it was a TV variety show, and he had musicians all the way from Bob Dylan to Louis Armstrong. So he was very diverse in the guests that he would bring on. So, and he also used that platform to talk about social injustices and social issues. Again, I had earlier, he was a big. He spoke on Vietnam, because the Vietnam War was going at that time.
Right.
It was the late 60s, not 70s, late 60s. And then, you know, prison reform was a big thing for him. Prison reform was huge for him. And then he spoke again, you know, on the rights of Native Americans, you know, and see what he could do to try to help those people. And that in 1968, he got 2 Grammys for his his record Live at Folsom Prison. So there's 2 Grammys for this record that nobody wanted him to make. Nobody wanted him to go in these jailhouses. But he used that prison reform. He's trying to give these guys something to look forward to, bring some happiness into their life. And
pretty similar to how music brought happiness into his life when he was working out on the field.
Yeah, exactly. So
maybe he thought he could do the same.
Yeah. So and that makes perfect sense. I can't think of a worse place you could be but in prison.
Yeah.
And you're nothing to look forward to.
Looking at concrete every day.
Yeah. So there's
steel bars and concrete.
Could you imagine Johnny Cash just rolling up in there and it's like, we're going to play a concert?
That'd make my life.
Yeah. It'd make you want to do better and get out, I think.
Yeah.
It would me. So in 1970, Johnny and June had the birth of their son, John Carter Cash. So things were moving right along for those guys in their relationship. He was in movies. He was in the movie Gunfight with Kirk Douglas in 1970. He had published a bestseller, Man in Black, in 1975. And again, he was elected to the Country Hall of Fame Country Music Hall of Fame in 1980. So he's continually working on projects, and he's working on himself to get better.
Yep.
1985, he joined up with Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson, and they formed the Highwaymen, which is some of my favorite, the Outlaws music.
Now, all this fame and success from an acoustic guitar.
A $5 guitar he bought in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure at that point in time, he may have upgraded his gear.
I'm sure he upgraded it.
But people in music nowadays get so caught up in gear and, what's the latest, greatest product I can buy. But
what kind of electronics can change me to sound like something I'm really not?
Yeah. But
it's just straight raw.
Yeah, it was done on guitar.
Yeah.
Done on an acoustic guitar. And
big giant bass, just the drums.
Right. But electric guitar came out sometime around then. They were some of the first to use electric guitars, right? Innovators.
Yeah.
But they're just true rock and roll before the distorted guitar was born.
We're talking about gear. Let's talk about Johnny Cash's gear. What with Johnny Cash, when he didn't have a drum for his guitar, what he slid in? What'd he do there?
Yeah. Johnny Cash actually slid a dollar bill in between his guitar strings to replicate the sound of a snare drum because he couldn't afford one at the time. I've actually got my guitar here beside me. I'll give you a little rundown of how that goes. 1 second. So Johnny would slide his $1 bill in between his strings to replicate the sound of a snare drum. That's that classic Johnny Cash sound that you always hear.
Yeah, sounds just like it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
but
all with the help of a $1 bill.
Yeah, so it just goes back to say, you don't need great gear to make great music.
That's right,
and that your musical capabilities are not bound by the gear that you own.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So we go back. We talk about his time with the Highwaymen. They released 3 albums. They said Johnny was the wildest one of the bunch, which I kind of think that's funny when Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings is involved, and Johnny Cash is the wildest one of the bunch. It's pretty funny. He went on to 1990, recorded The Wanderer with U2. I mean, he's working with U2 at this point in 1990.
Listen to that song last night.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And he stayed busy till the very end. I mean, he's always constantly working. This guy's was just working.
Was it at that point in time where, was it his daughters were skeptical of him working with?
No, not yet.
Okay,
not yet. So he hadn't got there, but it's close. It's
Timeline's
in the
a little
90s.
off.
We're getting there.
Okay.
I will say this, little side note, and I won't say names to protect the innocent, which I shouldn't care, but I had an opportunity to see Johnny Cash at Cowboys in Kennesaw, Georgia, back in the 90s, probably early 90s. I can't remember the day exactly. So I had my ticket. I was ready to go. And by the way, I saw Jerry Lee Lewis there, which was amazing. And I saw Merle Haggard there, which was amazing. But I was fighting with my girlfriend that day. And I was like, I'm not going because so-and-so's going to be mad and I just don't want to hear it. So take my ticket and sell it to somebody. Give it away. I don't care. And so he died and I didn't get to see him. So, You know who you are out there.
I don't know who you are out there.
I'll never forgive you. And I hope Liam Neeson comes and breaks your kneecaps with a ball bat.
I hate you.
So, I will never forgive you.
I don't know you.
On my deathbed, if they say, if you're going to heaven, you got to call so-and-so and get it right with her, I'm going to be like, no, I'm not doing it.
You may know me. I don't know you, but I do hate your guts.
So yeah, that was painful, man. God, I just relived something very painful in my life. It's damn it. So we go. So where can we?
You could have watched. You could have been there, man.
I could have been there
in the flesh.
I could have been there, man. I could have been there.
You tore up over a stupid girl.
Listen, and we knew the people that we could actually got back there to actually probably take a picture with them. Of course, we didn't have camera phones back then, but we took our digital cameras with us so we could post
the Polaroids.
So we could post it on MySpace. But so you know, the 90s are kind of blowing up for him too. It's at the end of his life, but the 90s are exploding. You know, we're getting a whole new group listening to Johnny Cash. He's got a whole new audience, and in 1992 he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you something about Johnny Cash and how badass he is. Punk groups don't cover country music artists. I mean, they don't cover country music artists. So Johnny Cash, he was covered many times by different punk bands, which was pretty cool. So, you know, and then you go back to.
This is also when we first figured out we can make our guitar sound like a badass chainsaw out of hell.
This is true too.
They used to early recordings of distorted guitar. Some of the first ones, they would actually take their amplifiers, their clean tone amplifiers, and they would cut holes or cut slits in the speaker, so it would give that distorted sound, that real break up, crunchy sound, and that's how distortion was created. So
yeah, and so going with that, Social Distortion covered Ring of Fire. So
really?
How's that? Yeah, sure did.
Oh yeah, they played that on Sirius XM Lithium.
Yeah, we listened to that. So 1994, Rick Rubin, huge producer, worked with, you know, Nine Inch Nails, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Rage Against the Machine. He's worked with everybody, and he reaches out to Johnny. You know, Johnny's health is not very good.
Grunge is booming at this time.
Grunge is just taking off. Again, it was a new wave of music. It took over.
It was.
So he you know, and
Elvis of our time.
Yeah. So everybody knows that he's getting down to the end, and you know, they really want to make this record with him, and his kids were skeptical about him actually making a record with Rick Rubin, and they were saying that they don't want him to make a record with somebody that don't really can appreciate him and his art, and his, you know, didn't want him to stay, kind of keeping him super busy, you know, and they knew how, you know, poor his health was, but he did it, man. And
they didn't want listeners to disrespect him and stuff like that, and give you know, diss on his name or just disrespect him. So he gets with Rubin, and they in 1996 they produce Unchained. So when you got Unchained, you know, it's just phenomenal what kind of work they did, you know. And then in 1997 he wrote his second memoir. It was Cash's autobiography, which is great. If you haven't read it, man, if you got some time, read that. It's amazing. You know, and again, the 90s were just physically hard on him. He was hospitalized numerous times. 1998, he had pneumonia. Didn't think he was going to survive that. At one point, he actually was in a coma for 12 days. He was in a coma for 12 days. Because of his diabetes.
Yeah, well, they thought it was his diabetes.
Oh, okay.
But it was something else. He was misdiagnosed.
Okay.
2002, he released American 4. And this is The Man Comes Around. It's got a mix of originals on it. So it's a mix of originals and covers. He covered the Beatles, Soundgarden, Rusty Cage, and then everybody's heard his version of Hurt. I
actually did not know that Rusty Cage was a Soundgarden song.
Yeah, it's a Soundgarden song.
I had no idea because I was listening to that and I was like, man, if I was to cover a song and make it like a punk rock version of that song, what would it be?
Soundgarden.
No, but I was listening to Johnny Cash, Rusty Cage, and I was like, dude, you could easily make this a punk song.
Yeah. Later
on, I found out it's Soundgarden's song. I had no idea upon listening to it. No, I have.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, because it just gives a whole different. I mean, the way he changed things, like, you know, Hurt. Once he, you know, Trent was so cool, and they let him cover that song. And when he made it, he covered it. And Trent's version of that song was about a young man suffering from drug addiction, and he was just having a tough time overcoming all this darkness and depression and drug addiction. And Johnny redid the song, and Johnny basically, when he sung the song, it's about a man who's accomplished so much in his life, and he's come to the end. He's about, and when you watch that video, man, and I'll go back to Tyler and I and Brittany. We had went to Nashville about a month ago, and we went into the Johnny Cash museum. If you have not been there, if you've been to Nashville, man, and you go, golly, it looks.
We actually got to meet the Man in Black.
Yeah,
we got a picture
we
right
got a
here.
picture with him. It's crazy how they do that. But if you think it's a little pricey and it looks small, it's not really small, man.
It goes so far back,
and it's so much better than the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Without
it's
a doubt.
So much better. I mean, they have really real. I mean, stuff that he wore on stage. They have his Nobel Peace Prize. They've got a timeline of the things that he done. And it's amazing. And before you go into, when you start getting to the end of it, and everybody knew how much he was in love with June and how much June was in love with him. And they were basically each other's medicine, and they kept each other alive. Probably more so June keeping Johnny alive than him keeping her alive. But you see a program from the funeral where she had passed away. And then beside that, after the funeral, he went home and he wrote her a poem. And it's the sweetest thing, and it's so heartfelt. And he wrote it immediately after he left the funeral.
I took pictures of it. I've yet to read it.
They have that poem, his handwritten poem, right there in the museum. So as you're walking around the corner, you see the big red velvet chair, the throne, and then you can hear Hurt playing, and then you see the video playing, and you just see his face, and he's just like, he's just at the end, and man, I'm not gonna lie, it choked me. I was choked up about it. It kind of really...
It gives me cold chills to talk about it today. At this point,
I get cold chills when I talk about it. So, but if you're ever in Nashville, go to the Johnny Cash Museum.
Go to the Johnny Cash Museum first, because you get a coupon to the Johnny Cash Cafe.
The Johnny Cash Chicken Cafe.
And I'm not taking shots at anybody or anything, but I'm going to say Johnny was a better guitar picker than he is a fry cook.
Let me just tell you, you want that $15 off, because that's an expensive meal.
Yeah.
So, but again, if you get to Nashville, go to the Johnny Cash Museum. It is well worth your money. It's just things you can see that it's just, if you're a fan of Johnny Cash, you really will enjoy it. You really will enjoy it. So, in May 2002, June passed away. And then, sadly, September 2003, Johnny had complications to diabetes, and he had passed away. So, he couldn't live without her. He had to have her, which I think is just a testament to both of them and the love they had for each other. For her to be able to endure and put up and work through all those dark times with Cash, to finally get Johnny out of him and have a pretty damn awesome life together.
I forgot the quote. I don't know it word for word, but after June had passed, he was still working on the record at the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He said that he had to have something to do, because if he's not doing anything, he has no reason to be here.
Yeah,
which means he's ready to go on.
Yeah.
There's no reason for him to be on Earth.
Yeah. So again, Johnny, super decorated, as a musician, as a author, songwriter, just a humanitarian, a patriot, and it's just he's just an incredible person. And every time his songs will sing to you, man. If you listen to them, you really listen to the words, they sing to you. Whatever you're going through, or whatever you got going on in your life, there's something that you can relate to in the words of his music. So
it's just pure. Except for the crime part.
Yeah.
It's not too pure on that.
So I know one of the big things, the big misconceptions that, and some people, and I had this brought to my attention too, and I wanted to address this. It's not, he carried this persona of this outlaw bad guy that was always in trouble with the law. He actually was arrested 7 times. And it was not for shooting a man just to watch him die in Reno. It was He had several drug and alcohol convictions, disorderly conduct, and reckless driving. He was actually arrested in El Paso. He had 66-gram tabs of Dexedrine and 475 tranquilizers on him when he was arrested. The arresting officers was upset because they were hoping that he had heroin on him, because at that time heroin was a big mover. A lot of artists were using heroin, but he did not have heroin on him.
I mean, he's tranking himself. He might as well be taking heroin.
Yeah, he actually had he had hit a bunch of Valium in his body.
Yeah.
And then they dissolved. The package that was in dissolved.
Oh.
And so his body absorbed it. And for 2 days he was out. Like for 2 days he was just out of commission. And when he woke up, he was disoriented and ranting and acting crazy. If you can imagine. I mean, imagine that would make you crazy. So some of the other funny things that he did, that there's kind of some stuff that I thought was kind of interesting. He almost wiped out he wiped out 49 of the 53 last California condors in population. And what happened was he had this old truck that he like partied in or whatever. And of course, as he was living in California, and he drove this truck and he parked it in a field, and the truck was hot.
Yeah.
And the tall grass caught on fire, started a forest fire, and he killed 49 endangered species. Or one endangered species, he killed 49 of the 53 remaining.
Yeah.
He went to jail for that. And he retorted that he did not care about your damn yellow buzzards. That was how much he felt about it. But the birds did get a little revenge on him. He had an ostrich farm, and he disciplined the ostrich with a stick. If they didn't do what they wanted him to do, he would whack them with a stick. And it's been said that, you know, if you know anything about an ostrich, they're just a modern version of a velociraptor.
Yeah.
If you notice the feet of an ostrich or an emu, they have these big, huge, like claws, like talons. And he whacked one of these ostriches, and it pissed him off, and it just reared up and kicked him in the stomach. Well, when it did, it ripped his stomach open. And he literally was holding his guts in with his hand and driving himself to the emergency room. So the man was almost killed by an ostrich. Jeez. So another thing that I thought was cool was he had met Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali had wrote him a poem to impress him, and which was really cool that he even thought of Johnny on that level. And he later found out that the poem was actually plagiarized. He had copied it from somebody. So you got to think about Muhammad Ali. He's intimidated to write Johnny Cash a poem for him to, I guess,
just to read, just to make an impression,
just to make an impression on him. He had to copy it from somebody. So it was kind of funny. I'm sure folks know this. June Carter Cash was the one that actually wrote Ring of Fire. She wrote it, and Johnny had a dream about the mariachi band the night before. So he took what she had dreamed and the dream that he had about the horns playing, and that's where Ring of Fire came from. But she actually wrote that song because when they were always out on the road together, they were both married to different people, but they both were, I mean, when you know, when you love somebody, you love them. And she knew she loved him, and he loved her back. And she wrote that song for feeling the way she felt about being in love with him when she probably shouldn't be. So when you go back and listen to Ring of Fire, think about that from a woman's standpoint, singing it about the guy that she's in love with, but she's not supposed to be because she's married. He was also known go back to an arrest story. This was a good one. He actually was arrested in Starkville, Mississippi. He was drunk at 2:00 in the morning, and he was picking random flowers out of somebody's front yard. So the police pulls up. He's drunk. He's picking flowers. And they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm just picking these flowers." And they're like, "Get your ass in this police car." So he got arrested for picking flowers at 2 a.m. drunk in Starkville, Mississippi. And his fine was $36 and a night in jail. So if you ever get drunk in Starkville, Mississippi, don't pick people's flowers.
Picking the flowers is probably the lesser of the two. But
yeah, for sure.
They rung him up for public indecency or intoxication.
But one of the cool things was in 2007, Starkville, Mississippi made it a day. It was they have every year the Johnny Cash Flower Picking Festival. So they
really?
kind of exonerated him that way and then honored him.
Do they still do it?
Yeah, still do it. Well, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the COVID virus, but
I'm doing that one day.
But that's the thing. Yeah,
that's on my bucket list.
I know that would be super cool to do that. So,
I'm a manly man, and it's okay. Maybe I'll pick some flowers. It'll be all right.
This guy, I mean, he's such a wild animal. You know, playing on the Grand Ole Opry was a big deal. I mean, it was hard to get in there. If you got in there, you were the who's who. And of course, he was loaded one night, drunk and probably on pills, and he didn't like the way the floodlights on the stage were shining in his face, and so he took his he took his mic stand and he started smashing all the lights on the stage. And they told him to get out, that he was fired. He'd never play at the Opry again. They kicked him out. And
Kurt's done stuff like that before him.
Yeah.
Flipped out because the lights are in his face.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine it, if you're under an influence of something, those lights probably make it hard for you to function.
Oh, probably.
So he gets mad after he's fired from the Opry. He jumps in June's Cadillac and takes he's hauling ass down the road, smashes it into a telephone pole, and literally breaks his nose and totals her car out. But I'm pretty sure he didn't go to jail. So, which is kind of crazy. He was also a jokester. He was at a hotel, and he released 500 chickens into this hotel, just because he wanted to. And
100 on each floor.
He had 5 floors, and he released 100 chickens on each floor. So the people that worked there weren't too happy about it. So he wrote all these great songs.
That was before he even was a big deal.
Yeah.
So they're like, who's this guy? You know,
he was wild. He was so wild. One of the other things, he wrote some great songs. There's so many memorable songs that he wrote. There's a song that some of you guys may not know. He wrote a song called "Chicken in Black," and that's a real story.
I've yet to hear that song.
"Chicken in Black." I haven't heard it either. I got to look it up. But he wrote this song. It's such a ridiculous song about a musician's brain getting stuck into a chicken. And he went on stage. He wore a powder blue cape and a bright yellow jumpsuit. And he did that so he could get out of his contract.
Yeah.
And it worked. They let him out of his contract. So everybody check out Chicken in Black. I haven't heard it, but I'm looking forward to it, actually.
I wish we could all just listen to it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Me too. These damn copyright laws, you can't do. We're not trying to. Anyways, don't get me started on that. I'll start bitching and won't stop. So you got all these different things that goes on, man. It's this man. He just had so many interesting things going on. In 2010, I mean, it still lives on. 2010, the Rolling Stones named him one of the greatest musicians of all time at number 31 on the list. I'm pretty sure I could bump him up over quite a few if I could. 2007, I go back. He's already been dead for 4 years, and they released "God's Gonna Cut You Down." There's such a powerful song, man. The message in it's such a powerful song. Actually, Marilyn Manson just redid it, so check that out too. That's pretty awesome. His version of it. Yeah.
How recent is that?
It's pretty recent, so it's pretty awesome.
Marilyn Manson's got some good covers.
Yeah, Marilyn Manson. I'm a big fan of Marilyn Manson too. So, so there it is, man. Johnny Cash in a nutshell. And there's so many things that I probably could have talked about that I left out. He was a huge friend of Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham. They communicated a great deal back and forth, and he had a lot of bad people in his life that he did a lot of bad things with, but he also had a lot of good people in his life, and it helped him, work through some of those dark times in his life. And I think if it wasn't for those people, he probably wouldn't have lasted very long. I mean, he was living a few lives in that one body before he got with June. And then even when he was with June, he still struggled with addiction and substance abuse.
It's hard to have a good head on your shoulders when you have money and opportunities.
And nobody tells you no.
Yeah, there's nobody there to father you in a sense.
Yeah.
To tell you what's wrong and what's right and when to stop.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this guy, and I always will be. And I think one of my jobs as a parent was to make sure that my children that I raise them to my best ability. And if you don't teach your kids about Johnny Cash, you're doing them an injustice.
Agreed.
So Tyler's a big fan. Even Zoe, she's 7, and she I remember a long time ago, she was in the car and I was playing Johnny Cash, and someone said, why don't you change that? Not everybody likes Johnny Cash. And then my child at that time was probably 2. She said, yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
I was like, that's my girl. So that's my girl. So
there's nothing I enjoy more than just taking a ride early in the morning when the sun's still coming up and just listening to Johnny Cash. Like if you got a road trip for the day, sun's just coming up, and the views we have here in Georgia is just beautiful. Open fields and mountain ranges. There's nothing
the
I enjoy more.
Appalachian Mountains, man.
Yeah, nothing I enjoy more than just listening to Johnny Cash. And I hate country music with a passion. And I have a lot of respect for Johnny Cash.
Yeah. There's a couple of things too that I left out, man. I hate it that I left these out. But I got to add them in because these were interesting things to me that I thought, we're talking about Cash. We're talking about,
The Man in Black.
We're talking about not Johnny. We're talking about Cash.
And it doesn't matter what we sit here and say. It doesn't do him justice.
He, if you saw in the movie, Walk the Line, where he crashes a tractor into the lake. That really happened. But he didn't get in a fight with his dad and crash it in the lake. He actually was about to go to rehab, and he went on a bender before he went into rehab. I'm
really ashamed to say this. I've never watched I Walk the Line.
Well, you should watch it. It's good. It's actually good. It's a good movie. There's a lot of Hollywood manipulation,
as with everything, though.
But it's still a good movie, and I think Joaquin Phoenix did an excellent job portraying Johnny Cash.
He's a great actor.
He is. And then he actually had a camper that he named Jesse James. And when he wanted to take a break and escape from life, he would take his little camper off and to wherever, the wilderness.
Him and Jesse James would just take a trip, huh?
Yeah, him and Jesse James, the camper, and he would go on 2, 3, 4 day amphetamine benders. That's what he did.
Jesus.
Like he didn't go take some shit and chill out. He went and took some amphetamines and was bouncing off this little camping trailer.
What's the difference between methamphetamines and amphetamines?
They're a stimulant, both. Both are stimulants. Yeah. So
okay. So Johnny was powdering that nose quite often.
Well, I think it's in a pill form. I wouldn't doubt he wasn't doing that too.
Yeah.
So, booger
sugar.
And the last thing that I thought was kind of funny was he was drunk, he was under the influence, and he'd been going all day. And at 4:00 in the morning, he decided he wants some coffee, and he was in Florida. And so he gets on the tour bus and takes off, and he backs it right into the swimming pool of the hotel he's staying at.
So, oh my gosh!
And then it's kind of funny. You think about Johnny Cash actually backing a tour bus into a swimming pool.
Public pool.
And you think about Oasis, which is another big band that I love a whole lot. One of their one of their album covers has got a Bentley in a swimming. I believe it's a Bentley. It's in a swimming pool.
What's the album?
Is it?
It's not Definitely Maybe.
No. God dang it! When is it?
We're gonna get crucified for this.
I know.
Hold on.
I'm gonna retreat.
I can't.
I'm gonna retreat. But all I know is they put a car in a pool. I wonder how many rock stars have put vehicles in swimming pools.
No telling. Be Here Now.
Be Here Now. Yes. Yeah, sorry, Oasis fans.
I got to touch up on my Oasis.
I'm ashamed. I'm gonna go give myself 7 lashes across the back with a belt buckle.
I'm gonna go buy a 335 and jam out to some Oasis.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we did it some justice. We again, there's so many different things we could talk about with Johnny Cash. We kind of wanted to give you some different things to listen to and a different way to look at him. And again, I hope you appreciated it. Go to the website, www.cigarstoreidiot.com. Buy some merchandise, man. Let us sell you some shit. We got some. And it's really cool.
We got plenty of shit.
Yeah, we do. And,
boxes stacked to the ceiling.
I know. Either we're going to sell them or they're going to taste good with mustard.
That's what I'm about to say.
Or if our power gets cut off, we're going to use a fire to stay warm.
Yeah, go buy some merch so we don't have to eat cotton. like Johnny in the fields.
Yeah.
Johnny used to munch on cotton.
Yeah. God dang. How do you do that? I'm choking to death thinking about it. So
yeah.
All right. Everybody have a good evening. We appreciate you being here. Y'all take care.